China, the top contender to replace US as a global power. India, the top contender to counter China. And both the countries have clocked horns in past. China is not like any other country. It is one of the few countries that can boast of being a civilization. It has existed for a period much longer than most of the Western superpowers. And yet, there isn't much scholarship on China for the world to understand how China thinks. Hello, my name is Manish Purohit, and this is my attempt to bring to you some books that have left an impact on me and holds the potential to do the same with you. And you are watching The Thought Matrix, where we bring to you content that makes you think and put those grey cells to work. Today, the book that I wish to introduce to you today is called How China Sees India and the World, the authoritative account of India-China relationships by Mr. Shyam Saran. Now, Mr. Saran retired as Indian Foreign Secretary. He has served a period of total 6 years as Indian Foreign Services Officer in China. 3 years in the 70s when China was under the shadows of Mao Zedong and going through the Cultural Revolution, and next 3 years in the 80s when China was reforming under Deng Xiaoping. Saran later went on to become the Indian Foreign Secretary and received Padma Bhushan Award for his excellent services to the nation. The idea behind writing this book, as I understood from reading it, that there must be an understanding of how China thinks. China is one of the most important countries in the world. It is the manufacturing hub for the world, and not dealing with China is not an option. Now, the book covers a lot of ground. It starts from the year 2000 BCE, when China was under Xia dynasty, till the time it became a so-called Republic of China in the year 1912, almost 112 years back. China as a country has its own insecurities, concerns, and ambitions, and a very different mindset. It is very important to understand that. If someone wants to deal with China, it is very important to understand how China thinks, what is their mindset, how they perceive our actions. Chapter 1 of this book, which talks about chronology of historical developments in China, is a beautifully conceptualized chapter. Mr. Saran has compared China under different dynasties with India at that time. For example, what was happening in China during the Indus Valley civilization, what was happening in China when India was under the Magadh rule, what was happening in China during the Gupta era or during the Mughal era, or when India was enslaved by British, and so on. In the later parts of the book, it covers many different mindsets of China, of why China thinks of itself as the Middle Kingdom, why China believes it has the mandate to rule everything under heaven, the fear for barbarians. For example, during its long history, China has been under a constant attack from nomadic tribes from its peripheries, and a lot of attacks were successful and they established their rule in China. This has led to a siege mentality in the Chinese. They believe they are highly civilized, they believe they are culturally very rich as compared to other countries, and the invaders are those barbarians who want to invade and loot the country. Now, China, who has been invaded many times, has written and rewritten its history as per their political motivations. Now, to give a gist of that, I'll read a few passages from the book. Now, on page 25, Mr. Saran in this para has beautifully explained the importance of history or importance of self-belief of the country. Stories that countries tell about themselves are important to help us understand their external behavior. The Chinese call this having discourse power. A persuasive narrative enables the pursuit of power to be cloaked in a mantle of legitimacy. China, it is claimed, has always been a great power in history, and its power and influence were acknowledged by other states which engaged with it. So China likes to be acknowledged as a superpower when it's dealing with other countries, which I believe lacked when West dealt with every other country. Now, in the words of President Xi Jinping, who has on multiple occasions talked about the Chinese dream, during one of the group study sessions of Politburo of the Central Committee of Chinese Communist Party held on 29 September 2020, Xi Jinping said, and the book quotes, and I read, Our country has a million years of human history, 1000 years of cultural history, and more than 5000 years of civilization history. The latest archaeological results show that China is a hometown of Oriental mankind and is tied with Africa as the first place where mankind originated. The Beijing apes invented the use of artificial fire 5 lakh years ago, one of the first in the world. As early as 10,000 years ago, our ancestors planted millet and rice, yet the origin of agriculture is tied with West Asia and North Africa as the first. China's invention and discoveries in musical instruments, canoes, irrigation facilities, astronomy, etc., are also the first and among the earliest in the world. These are words of Xi Jinping. Our country was a world leader in development of ancient civilizations during the Neolithic, Bronze and Iron Ages. Chinese civilization is the only civilization in the world that has continued uninterrupted since ancient times. China was invaded many times. It was ruled by external forces for a very long period. Yet the narrative that Chinese wants to pull is that it has continued uninterrupted since ancient times. The ancient Chinese agricultural technology, the 4 great inventions, these refer to paper, printing, gunpowder, and the compass, as well as lacquer, ware, silk, porcelain, iron, and steel making technology. The county system and the imperial examination system are distinctive and original in the history of world civilization. So in order to legitimize its rule, its steps, its own political ideology, China has made multiple efforts to streamline their own history as per their political motivations. Now this book gives a very detailed idea of how China thinks about India, how India went from being a teacher, being a country that is civilizationally and culturally more rich than China, then to a slave of Mughals and British later, and during the Opium War when Indian troops were used as shock troops, there was a sense of hatred that was developed towards Indians in the Chinese mindset, and that has carried on. Now this book talks about China's claim of Tibet, how Taiwan was created, and many interesting aspects of how China thinks and why it is the way it is, and it's a very good read. As regards the writing of the book, it's very lucid, though it's a scholarly work, but the language is simple and masses can read it. You definitely need to have some interest towards the Chinese study so that you can go through this book. Language is easy, but the content needs a lot of teeth for chewing. It would definitely put your gray cells to work. I would definitely recommend this book to you. Such books are rarely written. You should definitely read it. Now, I hope you like this introduction. It was not a review, it was just an introduction. I'm just a student, no expert to review the book. That is all for today. Thank you for watching this video. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe the channel. We have just started. We are still learning a lot of things like lighting, editing. But if you guys would continue supporting us, we will definitely go through it. Thank you.